Welcome into the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock shows are here to get you ready for today's Fire Casino 400. FireKeepers Casino 400. Got to get that one right there. Of course, we're here to break this one down for you. We are sponsored by PrizePicks. Talk about some of those props over at PrizePicks here later on in the show. Of course, as always, here on the NASCAR Live Before Lock show, I am joined by Chris Pennell. Chris, good afternoon. I hear you feel a little better.
A little bit. I got a little bit of a cough, so I'll try not to be too annoying in the stream. I'm sure you can hear it in the pre-show, but looking forward to the race today. Should be a fun one and just a good time talking NASCAR DFS with you every Sunday.
So you're saying you're glad we're not doing some right turns. Is that what you're saying?
That race needs to never happen again. That was bad at the end. I blame
Yeah, did not do too well last week. That was kind of it was a little bit of a rough week.
No, I was actually in first place in some tournaments, and then Christopher Bell got the tire issue at the end, and then I think every single one of my high-owned drivers wrecked or crashed. It was bad.
Of course, if you got any questions here on today's race, line those up, whether if you're a premium member over our Discord chat or right here on YouTube. Of course, we're going to break down this slate all the way from the high-end drivers all the way to the low-end drivers. Maybe look at some of those cash versus GPP plays that are out there. In terms of roster construction, the way I set it up today was a 1-2 Dominator build, going in there and kind of, labeling out the drivers that I believe have a, high probability of being the top 2 Dominators, and just basically telling Fantasy Cruncher, give me 1 or 2 of these guys.
Yep, I'm pretty much the same exact way. Now, Bubba Wallace does make that to where you can easily fit in 3 DOMs this week, and he is going to be in that DOM group, but it is very easy to fit him in alongside guys like Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. So I would say, yeah, definitely at least 2 of those guys. But Bubba Wallace makes it an interesting scenario this weekend where it's very easy to fit in more than 2 this week. But outside of Bubba Wallace, I want at least 2 of those guys.
Yeah, I didn't go this route in terms of the groups that I created. Typically, it's always Dominators. Then there's always going to be a punt that says, give me at most one of these guys. You just don't want to be stuck in those multi-entry lines where, magically you've got, two drivers underneath 6K, and we kind of know who those drivers are. But I did consider, because Toyota's killed it yesterday. You look at the qualifying positions, they're all at the top.
Yeah, they were super good. Killed it in practice, killed it in qualifying, probably going to kill it during the race. I would say Kansas is the most comparable track to Michigan. And if you watch the Kansas race, all the Toyotas finish inside the top 10. So, man, my expectations are pretty high for sure.
Yeah, it's if you create a group of Toyotas and said, give me at least 2 of these, I would not mind going that route.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Now, thing is, I'm not even sure you have to do that, because projection-wise, they're probably just there than anyway. Like, I'm voting lineups, and I can fit in 4 of these guys quite easily, even 5 sometimes. So, yeah, I think the group for that, if you want to go that route, perfectly fine, but you might not even need to.
Well, and we kind of talked about this pre-show. Ty Gibbs is kind of one of those ones that I feel like you're gonna, when you're crunching, massive amounts of lineups. The thing I did find is I had to kind of, finagle it to give me more Ty Gibbs than it was initially giving me.
Yeah, I would definitely try to do that. I guess sometimes if you don't agree with the projections, you can always manually input that to where you get more of a certain driver that you like. And if Ty Gibbs is one of those drivers, I am perfectly fine with doing that this weekend. He was super fast in practice, won the Xfinity race yesterday at Michigan. And he said getting extra time in those Xfinity cars for the Cup race does help him out. So, yeah, my confidence is pretty high in the guy. I know we don't have a ton of data on him, and he's less than 20 years old, but, he's got a pretty high ceiling today.
Yeah, and of course, this potentially could be the last week for him with Kurt Busch slated to come back next week. I know Bob, he had put out a video on his Twitter that basically talked about what Kurt has been doing to put himself in a position to race, coming off the concussion that he suffered in that wreck a couple of weeks ago. And it was kind of a very interesting report that he had out there. But, of course, we're going to break this one down for you. Let's start in the top-tier salary drivers here. These be the drivers that are above 10K over on DraftKings. We'll start off with Chase Elliott. He is starting 13th. 10-9 on DK, 14,000 on FanDuel. He is starting 13th today. And, you kind of, if you're a Stokastic Plus member and you look at some of the things we have there, the number that's going to pop off to me, at least, is that DK top 6 percentage.
Yeah, Chase Elliott's just been so good over the past month or so now at all track types, road courses, super speedways, short flat tracks, intermediates, the high speed tracks. He's just been so good. And while I don't think he's going to be as good as the Toyotas today, he's not someone I'm willing to fade. I'm still getting a decent chunk of exposure to him. He was top 5 in the 5-lap in practice, only P10 in the 1-lap, but you just can't count out Chase Elliott right now. And if you're looking at some of his finishes this year at similar tracks, I know some of them are a bit skewed. Finished 33rd at Charlotte, but he was able to get up front during that race, just killed the car at one point. Technically won the race at Pocono a couple weeks ago after Hamlin and Kyle Busch got DQ, but still finished top 3 there. So I like him, just not as much of the Toyotas that we're going to talk about pretty soon.
By the way, we should note weather is not looking good in Michigan today. If you go over to Bob's Twitter, he just put up the latest radar. Yeah, it does not look very good here. As we got green flag is at 3:01 p.m. Eastern time. Sundown is 8:49. There is no lights. Lap 100 later would be an official race if it rains. There's likely 90 to 120 minutes to dry track if need be. So, I mean, that is can be the tough process of, what happens if they can get, say, an hour of racing in, hour and a half of racing in, maybe we only get a little past lap 100.
Right.
That's a tough part of developing. And that's where that's where the Bubba Wallace question is going to come when we talk about Bubba Wallace.
Right. It's tricky because the weather, you can look at it 2 ways. Because one, it would limit the amount of Dominator points that we have, making Dominators less important. But at the same time, that's a less amount of time for the drivers in the back to move their way through their front. So it's kind of like, well, which one do you want to rely on more? I personally can't build waiting on the weather because you have no idea how that's going to work out unless you just have a hurricane, it's coming right at you. So it's going to be hit or miss here. It looks like, I think you said around a 50% chance of rain. So personally for me, I'm just building for a normal race here. And either way, I still think the builds are going to look somewhat similar, whether it rains or not.
Let's move on to the next driver. That is Kyle Larson. He is 10-7 on DraftKings, 13,000 on FanDuel. He is starting 8th today.
Yeah, not getting the too much Kyle Larson. I definitely prefer his teammate Chase Elliott. And I don't think Larson's going to suck today or anything, but his price point, I just can't see him outpacing the Toyotas. I can't see him outpacing his teammate Chase Elliott. And you also have the Trackhouse cars, Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. He would assume to be a factor at some point. So while Larson's been good at these track types this year, I just don't see him dominating over the Toyotas, who have been on fire the past month or so now.
Then we got Kyle Busch. He is starting 3rd today, 10-5 on DraftKings, 13-5. 10-5 on DraftKings, 13-5 over on FanDuel. And he is one of the drivers that was in my Dominator pool.
Oh, yeah. I'd say he's the most likely candidate to lead the most laps today. He's the favorite in Vegas. Pretty much checks each and every single box for me. He's averaging the most DraftKings points per race at these track types this year. He was P1 in the 1-lap in practice, P3 in the 5-lap. He's starting right behind the front row, Christopher Bell. But Wallace, 2 guys I think he can overtake at some point in stage 1, if not stage 2. He has an excellent pit group, good pit stall for this race. Green flag speed-wise grades out well. So I honestly don't know why you wouldn't like Kyle Busch today.
Next up, we've got Denny Hamlin, another Toyota driver. So our second Toyota driver talk about here, 10-3 on DK, 12-5 over on FanDuel. He is starting 9th. But when you talk about obviously Kyle's going to have a ton of ownership. If you want to get away from some of that ownership, Denny Hamlin is getting about half the ownership that he's getting.
Yeah, if that's going to be the case, I'd much rather get the Hamlin because I feel like their upside is quite similar today. He was P3 in the 1-lap and then P1 in the 5, 10, and 15 lap runs in practice. Also won the most recent race at Pocono before the DQ, won the race at Charlotte, and 4th place in the race right after that. That was also an intermediate. So he's been on fire. And I mean, if it runs like these similar tracks, I mean, the Toyotas are going to be strong. And Hamlin starting 6 spots further back than Kyle Busch has a little bit of PD upside mixed in there. So I almost feel a little bit safer with Denny Hamlin in cash games than I do Kyle Busch, but both guys are excellent plays and 2 of my highest owned drivers on both sides today.
Appreciate everyone tuning in here on a Sunday afternoon for the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live 4 Lock Show. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That truly does help us out a ton. Of course, you're not subscribed to Stokastic. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know a show is live here on the channel. Of course, we got you covered all week long for all of the MLB, NFL preseasons here. We got preseason coverage for you as well. So keep it locked here to Stokastic.com and be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That really does help us out a lot as well. I feel like this is probably the broken record portion of the show here. The guy that we just love every week because he's been killing it. And I believe your line is, you believe Trackhouse is cheating, but I'm all for the cheating, and that's Ross Chastain. I mean, every week we just talk about just a raw speed of how well he's been doing this season. He's a flat 10,000 on DraftKings, 12,000 on FanDuel, starting 22nd. So we got some PD upside here.
Yeah, the only thing drawing you back from Chastain would be the practice speeds, P21 in the one lap in practice, P17. But I'm going to be honest, I don't really care that much. I wish he did show me some more speed. I don't think he's going to beat the Toyotas today, but starting in 22nd, he should still be a guy that has a top 5, top 8 kind of race, and that's going to be enough to probably get the job done in cash games today. Now, for tournaments, I do prefer getting the guys like Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, but Chastain's still in an excellent spot here. They've had pretty much the most raw speed consistently at all track types so far this year with Ross Chastain. So while he wasn't that great in practice, might have sandbagged a little bit. We've seen a couple times this year where Chastain wasn't as great in practice, but still awesome during the race. And I can't just imagine their speed got zapped away out of nowhere. So I'm definitely a fan of Ross here, one of my highest owned drivers, but slightly behind Busch and Hamlin in tournaments. But I think Chastain's a good spot to get to in cash.
Yeah, he was a cash score play for me today. Next, we got Tyler Reddick. He is 9,700 on DK, 11,500 on FanDuel. He qualified 6th.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick's in a weird spot here because he's starting pretty close to the front. He's pretty expensive. I wish he was starting a little bit further back. Was pretty strong in practice, but again, I can't see him outpacing the Toyota, so I do prefer Truex, who we're about to talk about. But Reddick has been hot, won the most recent race, and finished 4th and 6th the past 2 higher speed tracks, and finished 7th at Las Vegas earlier in the season. So he's definitely a GPP contender for me, and I do have over 20% exposure to him, I believe, on both sites, but it's not going to be as high as the Toyotas.
You mentioned about Truex. He's $200 less than Reddick at 9,500 on DraftKings, and he's 1,000 cheaper over on the FanDuel side of the equation at 10,500, and he starts 7th.
Yeah, he's very easy to roster over on FanDuel. He's a guy that I got close to 40% exposure to over on the FanDuel side of things. I like him as a tournament play today. Not going to have as much ownership as some of these guys up top, so he was a guy I tried to get a little bit of leverage on. He showed top 5 speed in practice. And on DraftKings, I do like him as a pivot there because a lot of people are going to jam in guys like Busch, Hamlin, Chastain, and you just can't fit in Truex that easily if you go that route. And you have Ryan Blaney, who we're going to talk about, that's going to get a lot of ownership as well. So Truex in a good spot here with a lot of speed, all the Toyotas. And I know he hasn't really been a dominator at these track types this year, but at some point, I think it's going to happen. And he still has to get a win. He's one of those drivers that is sitting well in the point standings, but does not have a win under his belt. And that could certainly happen today.
You mentioned about Ryan Blaney. He's starting 24th today, 9,300 on DraftKings, 11,000 on FanDuel. He's another in cash that was like kind of like as I was developing my cash lineups, I'm like, how do I not get to Ryan Blaney?
Yeah, it's hard not to like him at that price point starting in 24th. He was top 10 in the 1 lap over in practice, but only P16 in the 5 lap. The only concern I have is that the Fords just have not had the most raw speed this year. And if you're looking at the finishes for Ryan Blaney, 35th at Pocono, which he was running a lot better than that, had an issue at the end. But 29th at Charlotte, 12th at Kansas, 36th at Vegas, 18th at Auto Club. Has not finished better than 12th at an intermediate track. I actually took the under over on his PrizePicks, not saying he's a bad DFS play, but at his prop, and we're going to talk about in a little bit, I just think it's a bit high here. So in tournaments, I'm underweight on Blaney, but if you want to play him in cash, I'm okay with that. But I do think the ownership might be a little bit too high.
Another PD upside play today is William Byron, who's 9,200 on DraftKings, 9,500 on FanDuel. He's starting 20th. And when you talk about the comparison, say where Blaney starting 4 spots back, if you wanted to get off a little bit of that chalky ownership of Ryan Blaney, William Byron could be that pivot spot.
Yeah, William Byron, I do have some concern. I think Bell's the better pivot. I know they're not the same play because he's starting so many spots further up, but Byron will be lower owned. But I do think that's for good reason. He was 27th, the 1 lap in practice, 20th in the 5 lap. I'm just kind of worried about the speed that he's going to bring. I think he's going to be more of around a 15th place driver today. I think Blaney's got a little bit of top 12 upside in him, so I'd rather go that route. And I am worried about the speed that I saw in practice from William Byron. And he hasn't been on the best side of luck recently. So I'm not a huge fan of him. And I think I'm in the single digits as far as my exposure goes personally.
You mentioned about Christopher Bell. He is starting 2nd today, 9,000 on DraftKings, 10,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I love Bell in tournaments today. I think he has the potential to lead some laps during this race, but I do think he's going to be a top 5 contender. If you remove the race earlier in the season at Auto Club where he finished 36th, he's finished 6th, 5th, 5th, and 10th. So all inside the top 10 and almost all inside the top 5, top 6. So at $9,000, I think he's a great tournament play. If you want to get off of Bubba Wallace as an early dominator, or even Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell's certainly in contention there, but I think you can play them all together if you want. I like their price points, and you just got to like all the Toyotas here. I know Bell wasn't as fast as his teammates in practice, but he brought in a really fast qualifying run, which did give me some more confidence in him.
With green flag at 301, and Philip points it out over in the YouTube chat, lock on DraftKings is 259. So you got under 45 minutes to get those lineups in there. I know right before the show, I was kind of adjusting some of my FanDuel lineups over there to try to get that 150 max in, and making sure I had the right CSV in there. I for some reason, like yesterday I'm playing MMA, I put my CSV in early. I'm like, oh, let me go check that. I had uploaded the wrong CSV. I had updated like a CSV from like a day before. I was like, yeah, good thing I checked that. And sometimes you got to check that CSV to make sure you got the right one in there.
100%. I was having issues earlier too. I was starting to think I had to send an email to FanDuel because I was getting so nervous.
It happens to all of us at some point. At some point, we will put the wrong CSV in and not even realize it. Yep. It happens to all of us. We all have that story that we can all relate to. But of course, we appreciate everyone tuned in here for the NASCAR Live Before Lock show right here on Stokastic.com. Do want to let you know about the promo we got going on right now. As Underdog has launched their Puppy 3 Best Ball contest for the 2022 NFL season, and you want to reserve your spot before it quickly fills up. With this, got an offer for you. We are offering $1 weekly access to our best ball kit through Tuesday, August the 9th. So you got 2 days to take advantage of this, as that's a $8.99 off our original weekly price. Package includes best ball, season-long fantasy football rankings, Underdog daily draft rankings, and more. Now, to activate this offer, use the promo code PUPPY3, that's PUPPY3, the number 3, at checkout, or simply click the link in the video description below. That's promo code PUPPY3 for $1 weekly best ball draft kit access. Of course, make sure to subscribe to our Stokastic Fantasy Football and Best Ball YouTube channels for daily videos from our experts that help you give you the edge on your competition. Of course, also check us out on all of our social media platforms as well. Plus, with the NFL preseason kicking off, it means have launched our preseason DFS projections. We're giving them to you for only $1 through August the 10th. That is on Wednesday. You can find the link to that as well in the description below, or use the promo code preseason at checkout. Of course, preseason football start on Thursday, and then everyone else, I want to say Thursday this week is the first. I think it's games Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, it's football. Yeah. Welcome to my world, Chris. This is game week starts tomorrow for me, so I'll be sweating my butt off tomorrow at the stadium. You live here in Florida now. You walk outside.
Oh, it's bad. It gets bad in the afternoon.
I mean, look, it's raining up in Michigan.
Right.
It's sunny as can be down here in Florida.
Oh yeah.
But of course, if you got any questions, line those up in chat. We'll get to those as we do go on. Let's move on to the mid-tier salaries. Joey Logano, he's 8,800 on DraftKings, 9,200 on FanDuel. He is starting 4th today. Is he a dominator for you?
I don't think he is. I got a question earlier today about how good he was in practice. So if you're looking at the NASCAR website that completely screwed up his numbers, they had him having a 7-second faster 5-lap the entire field, like going around 200 some miles per hour. That's just not the case. They messed that up. Did have a good qualifying run, obviously, but I just can't see him outrunning guys like Busch, Hamlin, even Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace today. They have more raw speed. So not a huge fan of Joey. The best finish he had this season at similar tracks is 5th at Auto Club, but that's when the Toyota struggled. After that, the best finish has been 14th, and starting in 4th, I really think he only moves back.
Then you got Kevin Harvick. He is 8,400 on DraftKings, 8,500 on FanDuel. He is starting 16th, and I want to say it was on the DraftKings side of the equation when I was doing my crunches. He was popping up a lot for me.
Yeah, I'm doing a 3-max right now, and I actually just put in Kevin Harvick, trying to play around with it. So funny timing on that. I don't think he's a bad play. I don't think he hates his car this weekend. Did a 20-lap run in the first session in practice. Got a P11 in the 1-lap, P14 in the 5. It doesn't seem like a terrible play to me. I do prefer Daniel Suarez for just a little bit more, but I think Harvick's a guy I can get to in tournaments. Not really getting there in cash games, but I think he's got top 12 potential.
Next up, we've got Alex Bowman. He's 8,200 on DraftKings, 8,800 over on FanDuel. He's starting 30th, so you know he's going to be a popular play today. Question earlier in the chat was thoughts on Alex Bowman on DraftKings for multi-lineups. Jorge, I'll tell you, I got to a ton of Alex Bowman.
Yeah, it's hard not to like him. He was top 10 in practice, and if you're looking at similar finishes at tracks this year, he's been pretty consistent. Had the win at Las Vegas. If we exclude Auto Club, where he had an issue where he finished 25th, 9th at Kansas, 10th at Charlotte, 13th at Pocono. You don't need much from Bowman to have a good day. So I'm definitely a fan here starting in 30th. I'd say he's got top 15 upside. And if he does that, you're well on your way to over 40 points.
I'll bring up the question, and Alex Bowman himself mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Well, you're in the back of the pack. You're racing with drivers that you prefer not to race with. I'm being nice here. So you're talking about, right behind him, you got Austin Hill, Corey LaJoie, Brad Keselowski, Cody Ware, Josh Bullock, BJ McLeod, Todd Gillen. We're going to get into Gillen because that's going to be interesting. But, you look in front of him, it's JJ Yeley, Stenhouse, Burton. I mean, the question is, if this is a wreck fest, could he get caught in that?
It's certainly possible. It's just hard to know what's going to happen back there. Yeah. I'm still going to play him, and he's had some pretty bad luck recently. I feel like he has always been cheap, and he keeps starting around 25th to 30th, and I feel like he gets wrecked or dies at some point at every single race. So at some point, he's due for some good luck. I think he's a good play. He's someone I am getting to, but I'm not trying to go overboard in tournaments because I like guys like Dino Suarez, Kevin Harvick, Bell at similar price points in GPPs. So I'm not going to go overboard, but I'm still getting into the 30s as far as my exposure on both sides.
Yeah, I think with him, if you're playing multi-entries, I think you have to kind of think about how much exposure you want on him because, if you're not setting in, different metrics when you're crunching lineups, you're just going to get a ton of Alex Bowman. You're just, so that's where, I think you got to kind of set that number. If you say, you know what, I'm playing in a 150 max just as an example, and maybe you go, I don't want more than 40% Alex Bowman. That's where you got to kind of manipulate the system.
Yep, 100%. And it also depends on your roster construction because if you have a bunch of PD guys like Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin, well, you're probably going to need to start finding some drivers closer to the front. So, pivoting off of him to a Bubba Wallace, although, Bubba's going to have a ton of ownership today, so it's not like it's a tournament pivot. It's just more of a roster construction pivot. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Next up, we got Eric Jones. He's 8,100 on DraftKings, 8,000 on FanDuel. He is starting 10th today.
So he's had some speed at these tracks this year. Didn't show a ton of speed in practice. I think he's an intriguing tournament play, but at his price point, they kind of priced them up to where it's just so much easier to get the guys like Bowman, Harvick, and Daniel Suarez. So not a ton of exposure for Eric Jones for me today.
Austin Cindric, he's starting fifth today, 7,700 over on DraftKings, 7,200 on FanDuel for the 4-team Penske driver.
Yeah, his finish-wise over the past month now, he's actually been pretty solid, but it's just he qualified too high for me to have too much interest here. I find him more so finishing outside the top 10, and if that's going to be the case, I can't see him dominating today. It's just going to have to be a driver I get pretty low on, unfortunately.
Chase Briscoe is starting 23rd today, 7,500 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, another guy where he offers some PD upside, but I just don't think he's going to have enough speed to really kill it today to get into the optimal. I can't really see him being inside the top 12, top 15 potentially, but he was a P20 car in practice. So just one of those drivers where I'm not getting too much of. I think there's a much higher ceiling with Bubba Wallace.
Speaking of Bubba Wallace, he started on the pole, 7,400 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel, and to give you a little insight into the Bubba Wallace chalk today, we're currently projecting him at 40% ownership.
Yeah, it's probably the highest or maybe the second highest we've had Bubba at all season long, but it makes sense. He's got a fast car. I know Bubba's not your prototypical dominator, but he's got the speed this weekend. Maybe they gave him an extra few horsepowers under the hood, but either way, I'll take the cars that are fast, and he does not need to do much. Like for me personally, I gave him around 13 laps led and around an 8th place finish, and while that's not great for a guy on the pole, that's not bad for a guy at his price point. That's still around 40 fantasy points. And if he can get 40 fantasy points today at that price point, that's not bad. I think that's a pretty conservative projection for him too. Like if he led a good chunk of stage one, they could be looking about Wallace going over 50 plus fantasy points today.
Just looking at the newest radar, rain is quickly approaching the Michigan International Speedway. So, and I know someone kind of joked about that. This could be another situation where you get a rain shortened race and Bubba Wallace finds his way into a short race win.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. We're going to have to see how that works out. I do worry about him at the first pit stop at the race because obviously his pit crew hasn't exactly been the best. And I think that's where guys like Kyle Busch or Denny Hamlin or something like that can out jump him. So we'll have to see what happens. But I do think he's in for a good day. And if he got another rain shortened race, I'll tell you, the Twitter replies on NASCAR won't be too pretty.
Next up, we got Austin Dillon. He's 7,300 on DraftKings, 6,800 on FanDuel. He is starting 26 today.
Yeah, he's a fine, boring play. And that's what I always say about Austin Dillon. His worst finish at a track like this year is 22nd, but he also has finishes of 12th, 13th, 11th, and 2nd. So if you're playing cash games and he's the last fit guy, no problem with that at all. I think he's pretty solid today.
Then you have Chris Buescher, who's starting 19, 7,100 on DraftKings, 6,200 on FanDuel. And are we going the narrative week for you here?
Yeah, I'm a big LeBron fan from Ohio, right around that area. So I think me personally, I should be playing some Chris Buescher. Wasn't bad in practice, top 20, top 15 in the 5 lap. Paint scheme looks pretty cool. He's cheap on FanDuel. I think he's a better play over on FanDuel at $6,200 than he is on DraftKings, but I have some exposure to him. It's just the RFK cars haven't exactly been the best at these track types this year is the only concern.
Brad Keselowski, he is starting 33rd, 6,900 on DraftKings, 7,000 on FanDuel. Can you talk me out of not rostering Brad and Cash? I feel scared to do this, and right now he's in my cash lineup.
He's slow. It's the only thing I can say. I don't expect much out of him, but if he contends for a top 25, which he should be able to do, he's got finishes of 16th, 30th, 14th at similar tracks out of the past 3 races and a couple of top 25 mixed in there as well. So starting at 33rd, I don't think he's great, but in cash games, you don't need much. So fine for cash, probably an underweight tournament play.
Eric Amarola is starting 18th today, 6,800 on DraftKings, 5,800 on FanDuel.
Yeah, if you're looking for a direct pivot off of Brad, I mean, Amarola showed top 10 speeds in practice, 7th in the 1 lap, 9th in the 5, and 4th in the 10 lap. I haven't really been one to roster Eric at these track types the past few seasons, but he's pretty cheap on both sites, like the pivot off of Keselowski chalk. And over on FanDuel, he's below $6,000, and he can make some things work quite nicely with some top 15 potential.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is starting 28th today, 6,700 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, Ricky, I would say, is probably a worse version of Keselowski today, so I don't really have too much expectations for Stenhouse, although I will say he's had some more speed at these track types this year, but pretty bad in practice, was P31 in the 1 lap. I have similar exposure to both him and Keselowski. Not expecting much, but if they can just gain 5 to 10 spots, I won't hate them.
Ty Gibbs is starting 11th today, 6,600 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'm loving Ty Gibbs in tournaments today. He was super fast in practice. He's in the 45 car, which Kurt Busch ran this car with his team at Kansas, which I think is a pretty comparable track, and dominated the race, won it. Obviously, I'm not calling Ty Gibbs Kurt Busch or anything. Kurt Busch is one of the best drivers ever, but I mean, Ty Gibbs has the upside for it. He's a very talented driver. He's just very young, but top 5 in practice across the board. And he won the Xfinity race at Michigan just yesterday, which does give me some more confidence. So starting at 11th, I realized it's a bit up there, but at his price point, it feels like a steal. Like if we just imagine Kurt Busch at this price point, I mean, it would be really hard to pass up. And again, not calling him Kurt, but I think he's a bit underpriced. Michael
McDowell is starting 14th today, 6,500 on DraftKings, 6,000 on FanDuel. I mean, we've talked about, like, he's one of these guys that I feel like when he's starting in this general position, right, like I'm just scared.
Yeah, I am too. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Now, if it was a road course, I'd be all about it. He hasn't exactly had the top end speed at these track types. He has gotten a little bit lucky with some of his finishes, and 24th in practice, 22nd in the 5 lap. I feel pretty comfortable not having much Michael McDowell today. I'd much rather play Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, but then, every time he's like, I swear, every time he starts like in this like 12 to 16 range, I'm like, no, I just can't do it. And then he goes out there and gets you like 40 points. Yep. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you talk about, like, he's been consistent this year. I mean, he just has. Yeah, he really has. It's weird because the speed doesn't really show sometimes in practice. And I think there's just other good plays where I'm willing to get to other guys. But if Michael McDowell wants to burn me again, I still have a handful of exposure to him, but I'm not like planting a flag on him this week. Next up, you got Austin Hill, 6,400 on DraftKings, 5,500 on FanDuel, and he's starting 31st today.
Yeah, he's in the 33 car for RCR today, so obviously not the worst car out there, but first Cup Series race, I don't expect much from him. Very slow in practice, qualified poorly, probably going to finish back there.
Cole Custer, 6,200 on DraftKings, 4,500 on FanDuel, and he is starting 17th.
Yeah, Custer's kind of sneaky. I'm debating on putting him one of my 3 max builds here. I'm never one to really want to roster Custer starting inside the top 20. It's definitely scary, but was 15th in the 5-lap run over in practice. And if you're looking at some of his finishes at similar tracks this year, he's been typically a top 20 contender. So not my favorite play, but I think he's kind of a sneaky tournament play down low. I'd prefer him over Austin Hill.
Then the final driver in this tier is Harrison Burton. He's 6,000 on DraftKings, 5,000 on FanDuel, starting 27th.
Yeah, Harrison Burton kind of snuck inside the top 5 last week. Definitely not expecting that to happen again. If you're looking at what he did in practice, P29 in the 1-lap, P24 in the 5-lap, not expecting much out of Burton. And I'm going to be honest, like all these 5K plays and lower 6K plays are pretty bad this week.
I unchecked a lot of these guys. I checked a lot of them. A lot of them. Yeah, that was like one of those things I was like, ooh, especially on the FanDuel side of the equation. I mean, most of these guys just aren't getting any ownership at all. Of course, this is the Stokastic.com NASCAR Live Before Lock Show. We're getting you ready for today's NASCAR race. And we are sponsored by PrizePicks. They have their daily prop-based contest. And when you sign up, be sure to use that promo code AWESEMO. They got an instant first match deposit bonus of up to $100. Deposit 100, they give you 100. Maybe you only want to deposit 20, they give you 20. So you got to take advantage of that over there at prizepicks.com. You can download their app in the App Store, Google Play Store as well. As we look at what they have over today over at PrizePicks, I know there's 3 plays that Chris mentioned to me. First up, we're going to go with Denny Hamlin, 48.5 fantasy points.
Yeah, he basically has to get a top 3 for that to happen. Vegas odds have him as the second best, but that's not including any Dominator points. And I'm expecting Hamlin to be able to get some Dominator points today. Arguably the best car over in practice, starting in 9th, a little bit of PD upside mixed in there. I think that number is just a little bit too low for a driver with his upside today.
Ty Gibbs, 26.5 NASCAR points.
Yeah, it's basically banking on a top 17 finish, which if you're looking at practice, he's got a borderline top 5 car. Now you got to keep in mind he's still a teenager, so I'm not sure if that's going to translate into a top 5 finish. But even if he just has a modest top 15 day, which he certainly should be able to do in a Toyota, I mean, you don't need much to get over 26.5. So I like that number a lot. And
then you got Ryan Blaney, 54.5 fantasy points.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier where I think he's a decent DFS play today, but 54.5, you're talking about a top 7 finish, and I don't really expect them to get many Dominator points, if any, today. So numbers seemed a bit steep. I think he should be around in the mid 40s to upper 40s as far as his projection. So 54.5 definitely seemed a bit high.
Now, of course, be sure to check everything over there at PrizePicks and use that promo code AWESEMO, instant first match deposit of up to $100. You can play right now over at prizepicks.com or download their app store or on the Google Play Store. So now let's move over to the low tier salaries, be the drivers that are underneath 6,000 over on DraftKings. Justin Haley, he's 5,900 on DK, 4,000 on FanDuel, and he is starting 21st.
Yeah, Justin Haley's just starting a little bit too high for me. I personally can't get there too much. Didn't show me top end speed in practice or anything. And best finish this year, 17th at a similar track. But I just expect him to move a couple spots back.
Then you got Ty Dillon, who's starting 25th. He's 5,700 on DK, 4,000 on FanDuel.
Yeah, usually Ty Dillon starting in the 30s. So it always makes him a pretty easy plug and play. Starting in 25th, it's kind of where his upside is. I will say he's finished inside the top 25 at every single track type like this year, but he's just kind of getting lucky with not wrecking because he's been very slow each time. So not a huge fan, but I wouldn't hate it if I landed on him a couple of times.
Noah Gragson starting 12th today, 5,600 on DK, 3,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, we talked about this in the pre-show. It's just hard to land on him today. He's just starting so high up, starting in 12th. I think he's a good driver, but I mean, realistically, he's probably going to be contending for a top 20 at the end of the day.
Yeah, I found it really difficult to go to him in tournaments. Corey LaJoie, he is starting 32nd today, 5,400 on DK, 3,000 on FanDuel.
LaJoie is interesting just because he's in the very back and he's like a pivot off of Todd Gillen. But again, just all these cars are really slow. There's a reason they're this cheap. So if you're rostering any of these guys, you're just hoping they don't wreck. And that's pretty much the only thing I can say for Corey LaJoie.
Yeah, Todd Gillen is a driver I was getting to in cash, just because of allowing to get me some more of the drivers I'm looking to get to. 5,200 on DK, 3,500 over on FanDuel. Of course, he's starting dead last, so I mean we got some upside here. But you mentioned a great point. If you want to get away from the ownership that Gillen is going to, Core of Joy is a great pivot.
Yeah, the thing is though, Gillen just starting dead last. He just needs to not wreck today, and as long as you hit on your other studs up top, it's probably not going to hurt you. I'd say there's I don't want to say it's a decent chance he's in the optimal, but if you can just nail the Dominators, nail some of these PD plays, and Gillen does not wreck, if he finishes 24th or something today, he's probably going to be in the optimal alongside some of these top end drivers. So don't hate him. I am getting to him quite a bit just to make things fit up top.
So JJT, appreciate it. We got a lightning hold at the Speedway with lightning happening there. So it has started raining there. So I guess maybe the good thing is rain's just got, get the rain going before the race starts, and we'll see how well this one's going to delay it there. Then these last four drivers, I don't want to get to any of them. Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, JJ Ellie, BJ McLeod. I don't want to get to any of them.
As we always say, if you're getting to these guys, especially this week, because it's kind of soft and you can kind of build whatever lineup you want, I think you're making some mistakes.
Just start over. Hit clear.
100%.
I mean, to me, it's just like when I'm developing, I just go uncheck. And also when the drivers that are, kind of in, I would say basically Austin Hill down in terms of salaries, it's telling Cruncher at most one guy. Yeah, I don't want to get stuck with two of these drivers.
No, absolutely not. And I really only feel comfortable with Gillen in that 5K range. Outside of that, Ty Gibbs is allowing me some pretty balanced builds today. So it's either Gillen, and then a lot of it's either just like a Ty Gibbs as far as my cheapest driver.
Looking at the betting side of the equation here today. So Kyle Busch is your race winner favorite. He's plus 450 today. Denny Hamlin plus 650. Bubba Wallace 10-1 here.
I don't think I can pull the trigger. It's something always happens to Bubba at some point. I think he's a great DFS play today, but to bet on him to win, I just feel like this is not the value we are looking for. This is probably like the ceiling, so you're not getting great value here. So I personally can't pull the trigger. But Ross Chastain, after practice, he went up to plus 2,000. I think he's now 1,500. There's still some value there if you're still a believer in the Trackhouse cars, even after a poor qualifying in practice.
You've brought up this point the past couple of weeks with Martin Truex Jr. and a couple other drivers, why they're in great position to playoffs. They may need to sell out for a win at some point. Right. He's plus 1,000.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. You said Martin Truex Jr., correct?
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't tell if you said Blaney or Truex, but yeah, I'm fine with Truex today. He's got a ton of speed, and if you're just betting on the Toyotas, the odds aren't bad for him. It's definitely getting better value than from guys like Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, and I would really expect the Toyota to be in victory lane at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't mind Truex, especially if he's got to get on some awkward strategy and it could pay off to win, especially if there's rain coming and they just try something different. It could certainly be in the position to do it.
One of the things, and I talk about this in all types of sports, is that I look at it and say, look at the betting odds. It can really help tell you some things. Mm-hmm. Like race winning manufacturer, Toyota minus 110, Chevy plus 150, Ford plus 500.
Right. Yeah. I was talking about that in I believe the top 5 picks video early in the week, where I'm pretty sure Toyota's going to be up top. Chevy's going to be kind of right there with them. Then Ford's going to be underneath the floor under 6 inches of dirt. It's just, that's how it is this season. They just don't really have the raw speed.
And we talked about how the Toyota's been killing it. You look at the top Toyotas here today. Kyle Busch plus 200, Bubba Wallace plus 500, Christopher Bell plus 600, Denny Hamlin plus 300, Truex plus 500, Ty Gibbs plus 1,500. For the top Toyota driver, that Martin Truex plus 500 kind of sticks out to me a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely appealing. We've kind of made the case for him several times, but he's got the speed this weekend. It's just not really reflecting over in Vegas or even on the DFS sites either.
Let's get a couple of questions over in Discord before we get into questions over here in the YouTube chat. Up first, DK Smallfield GPP 2v2, Bell and Kyle Busch or Hamlin and Truex.
I'm going to go with Hamlin and Truex. There's a little bit of more balance with the PD upside.
Yeah. It's a good 2v2 question, though.
It really is.
Next one goes, is this more of a dom points place or placement? We talked about this 1-2 dominator build. Maybe you get to a third dominator. If that third dominator, say, is Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm going with. I mean, there's not a ton of dominator points available to us this weekend, but it's kind of like a finishing position with some dominator mixed in point kind of race.
And asked if anyone's going to the back. I have not seen anything that anyone's going to the back.
Yeah, I don't believe Bob has said anything. He's really our source of information for that. So let's just hope he's not being lazy today.
He's got it on lock. He's got that reporting aspect on lock. Of course, I'll get to some of the questions that came in here earlier on in the show. Let's see here. Hey guys, for 3 max, I have a lineup with Kyle Busch, Truex, Harvick, Bowman, Wallace, and Gillen. Thoughts? I have a very similar lineup to that. Very similar lineup.
I think roster construction wise, it follows most of the rules that you'd want to follow. So I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, you just like you look at that, you've got the dominators, you got some place differential in there, and then you got your punt to allow you to get to those plays.
Yeah, I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Let's see here. Josh, there's 200 laps today, saying we get all 200 in.
Yes.
DK single entry GPP last spot, Hamlin or Busch?
Hamlin's going to be lower owned, so I think he's a decent pivot there from Busch.
Yeah. For DK single entry, let's see here. Okay, so it's 2 different lineups. Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Blaney, Bowman, Gibbs, and Balicki. Or Hamlin, Busch, Blaney, Amarola, Wallace, and Gillen. I would go the second one.
Yeah, I can't recommend ever a lineup that has Balicki in it personally.
Yeah, I mean, like, God, who was it? Someone tweeted at me last Sunday, and it was one of these one of the back of the pack drivers,
right?
And it's like, okay, yes, one time a season they actually does something.
Right, exactly. It's just completely luck based. You cannot project for these guys to ever hit into the optimal. It's just if there's a bunch of guys that react and chaos ensues, that's when it can happen.
Yeah. Blaney or Truex in a GPP?
Definitely going to be Truex for me. He's going to have the lower ownership, and I'm just all aboard the Toyotas.
See here, single issue GPP: Chastain, Harvick, Gillen, Gibbs, Blaney.
Chastain, Chastain, Harvick, Gibbs, Gillen, Blaney.
Yeah,
that's not.
I'm guessing. I don't mind that lineup.
No, it's not terrible. I'm trying to. I think we're lacking a driver close to the front, though.
Yeah,
this is the only concern there because you're going to be giving up some of those dominator points early on, which I think you're going to want to at least soak up some of them.
3v3 DraftKings GPP: Bowman, Harvick, Kyle Busch, or Suarez, Bell, and Truex.
I'm gonna have to go with the second one there. I like it from a tournament aspect, getting away from some of that Kyle Busch chalk. I like it, but you still have some other good plays in there mixed in as well.
The first one's very chalky.
Yes, that's the only problem for a tournament.
Yeah, because Bowman's a very chalky play today.
Right. 100%.
Trying to find I have so many Excel spreadsheets open up down here. I gotta figure out which one here. Yeah, I mean Bowman. Let's see here, Bowman. He's approaching 40% ownership,
which I'm not the biggest fan of in tournaments to get to that massive exposure. Because you have guys like Eric Jones, Harvick, Suarez right beside him that I think are pretty similar as far as being a play today. So I just think he's getting a little bit too much ownership.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of these PD plays today, like Alex Bowman, Blaney's getting a ton of ownership. Like, if you want to get away from that, I don't mind pivoting to William Byron.
No, I do worry about the practice speeds, but at the end of the day, the Chevys have been a lot better than the Fords overall at their off-speed track. So, I prefer Blaney in a vacuum better, but if you're just looking for the lower ownership, Byron's definitely there.
Thoughts on Chase Briscoe for FanDuel?
Not the biggest fan of Briscoe today. I think there's better plays at similar price points. The projections do like him because of how cheap he is over there, but I did limit him down a little bit.
Of course, you hear me talking about the tools and data we have over at Stokastic.com. Of course, we've got content for nearly every DFS sport out there, and you can get access to those tools and data with a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. Of course, this includes all the premium data that everyone here at Stokastic.com uses, player projections, ownership projections, our premium Discord channel, and so much more. And if you're a new user of Stokastic Plus, we've got a great deal for you right now, as you can save 50% off your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. All you got to do is click that link in the video description below to activate that offer, or you can use the promo code NASCAR LBL, all caps, one word, NASCAR LBL, for 50% off your first week of any weekly package. So if you just want to sign up for that NASCAR weekly package, use that promo code, get 50% off your first week of our NASCAR package. Now, this is for new users only, and Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in our base package, but can easily be added at checkout. Join Stokastic Plus today. A top driver tool is a tool that I use every week to develop my lineups, and today is one of those races where I went kind of heavy on groups, like last week was not really a week where I went heavy on groups just because of the race type, but this race, because I'm trying to get those Dominator builds, I want at least 1 to 2, maybe you get a third one in there. You could do that. You could, maybe you say, hey, give me 1 to 3. But the problem is, if you set 1 to 3, you're probably going to find yourself in some of these low end punt plays. That's why you got to create a punt play group as well, or you just straight up just uncheck them. So you don't get to them. I know how much you love Cody Ware. I feel like you got a Cody Ware shirt somewhere in that closet.
I tout him every single week. I can't get enough of Cody
Ware. Yeah, it's like I said, man, that's 6,400 and under on DraftKings. Like, it's just,
oh yeah, it's bad.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I did a 3 max on DK just now, and I might have just went all in on Ty Gibbs. So see what happens.
Okay. Obviously the Toyota. But like you've mentioned about, he's still a 20-year-old driver.
Right.
Very young. He's getting some experience. Look, he's going to have a full-time ride, Joe Gibbs, in the very near future. Everyone knows it. It's coming.
Yes.
But like, what would be your cons to playing him? Or I should say playing him, having high exposure to him.
Age and inexperience is the only thing. He's in a great car. He's a talented driver. Won the Xfinity race last. Like, the only thing bad about Ty Gibbs you can say is there's inexperience there. That's about it.
Yeah. And I just know when I was doing my crunches, he was not coming up a lot. So I did have to kind of, make some adjustments to make sure I was getting to him.
Yeah. And that's like we talked about. That's some things I do personally, where if I think a driver's showing up too much, I'll adjust the projections a little bit. Or if I don't think they're coming up enough, I'll adjust them a little bit. So he's one of those guys where I have him around low 30s in points today. And if he hits that at $6,600, like his ceiling, you compare him to guys like McDowell, Austin Hill, Custer, Burton, like none of these guys are in basically a JGR car. You're getting a very steep discount. And I'm just kind of doing him as Kurt Busch. Again, he's not Kurt Busch, but I'm kind of doing him as Kurt Busch at that price point. And he's just so cheap.
Next question we have here is Busch, Truex, Bell, and Hamlin in the same lineup.
Busch, Truex, Bell, and Hamlin. So Busch, Hamlin, Truex, Bell. I got them all set in. We are at 53.50 per lineup. It's possible you could go Gilliland and LaJoy. I would never have that. No.
If you want to take a shot, and but like if that's like your only lineup, unless like you're in a large field GPP and you're just like, how the hell do I get away, separate myself from the field?
Right. And I don't think a lot of people will go that double punt approach. And you are getting an extra, maybe like an extra high end driver that most people aren't going to have. So do I like it? I'm not sure I like it, but I think it's at least feasible. I could see it happening.
Yeah. If playing one lineup, is Hamlin, KFB, Larson a good core?
Hamlin, Busch, and Larson?
Yeah.
That's pretty expensive of a core. I think
Yeah.
I'd probably take out Larson and then throw in a cheaper guy as far as my next core play.
I have Elliott, Bush, and Bubba with Custer and Gilly. Would you go with Truex, Blaney, or Reddick small field GPP?
I'm probably going to roll with. So it was
Elliott, Bush, Bubba, Custer, and Gilly. So obviously last spot in of going either Truex, Blaney, or Reddick. I would probably go Truex because of the Toyotas.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I think that's got better correlation rather than the Ford and the Chevy there. I'd go with Truex too.
Yeah. Thoughts on Joey Logano? Why is he so low owned?
The Fords haven't had the best raw speed this year. Logano's best finish outside of Auto Club is like 14th or 17th at similar tracks this season. And wow, if you're looking at the skewed numbers on practice, it would show he's number one, but it wasn't the case. So it's hard to imagine him outpacing a Toyota today. I think he outqualified.
Thoughts on Amarola?
Not a bad tournament play. I was trying to squeeze him into one of my lineups. In 150 max builds, I did get to him. He's pretty cheap on both sites and decent pivot off of some of the chalk like Brad Keselowski. So yeah, I don't think he's a bad play in tournaments at all.
Let's see here. What do you guys think of the top? Who do you think is the top punt play?
It's pretty easily Gilliland. I mean, if you want to include Ty Gibbs as a punt, but not really. So I would say Gilliland's. Everybody else is awful.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I look at those punts, for me, it's either Gilliland or LaJoy.
Yeah, and even that, it's like, do I want to play LaJoy? No. So it's just basically Gilliland.
Jim goes, I was crunching FC, and Hill comes in at 90%. Jim, I would ask you, are you putting in anything, or are you just saying crunch?
I will say I looked at the fantasy cruncher, how you can do it without the uploading the Osmo or stochastic projections. So they have him as like the third highest projected driver today. So not sure what that is. So make sure you either upload different projections or use the stochastic projections and it'll fix that.
Yeah. That's always, just make sure. And, and for me, and this is just what I like to do. I always like to do 2 unique drivers per lineup. And then I'll set a randomness. It depends how crazy I want to get with randomness.
Yeah.
You could really get crazy. You really want to kind of spread out your ownership throughout the field. DK single issue GPP, is Bubba and Bell too much?
It's the front row, but at their price points, it makes it more viable. Because if we're talking like 211K drivers, I wouldn't do that. But it's $7,400 and 9K. I have some lines with them together for sure.
Man E says, can you shed some light on Chase Elliott's ownership, which we're projecting him at 20%?
Yeah, I can see him being in the 20s today. You got to keep in mind who he's priced around. You have Bush, Hamlin, Chastain, all guys that are going to garner ownership. So not everybody can play 30% of everybody up top. So he's going to be a little bit lower owned. I think he'll be higher owned than Kyle Larson. So if you're looking for the pivot up top, you are going to have to get away from JGR, but Elliott's just been so good. So it's hard to bet against him.
By the way, lock on DraftKings is now 3:15 p.m. Eastern time.
Thank goodness. I got to talk myself out of 100% Gibbs in a 3-max. I was just going to roll with it because I don't have enough time, but I guess I have some time to think about it.
Yeah, looking over on FanDuel, they still have 3 p.m. As lock here.
I do want to mention Bush's. Looks like they're putting covers on the cars in Michigan right now for rain.
Yeah, I saw that. FanDuel lineup: Hamlin, Truex, Suarez, Harvick. Would you go Byron or Gibbs as last driver in?
That's a big price difference.
Yeah, huge price difference.
I mean, points wise, Byron. It's going to be Byron, but are you going to leave $3K on the table? Is I guess the question.
Yeah. Bowman or Harvick in cash?
It'll be Bowman for me. You're more ownership and just starting 15 spots further back.
Yeah, it's got to be Bowman to me. I feel better about going Bowman in cash.
I do. I mean, at similar finishing position at the end of the day, and then you get the extra 15 spots. So
Ryan goes with Bubba Wallace or Austin Dillon.
Wallace has the higher ceiling for sure. Yeah. I mean, Dillon feels a little safer with the safety net, but Bubba's got a pretty high ceiling.
Thoughts on Harrison Burton being a low-owned option?
Low owned for a reason. All those guys are just really down low. I'm playing a little bit of him because I'm not playing 100% of some of these scrubs, but he was bad in practice. P29 in the one lap. like starting 27th, sure, is going to be lucky for a top 25, I'd say today, probably.
Yeah. Of course, appreciate everyone tuning in here for Live Before Lock. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button. That does help us a lot as well. And of course, you're not subscribed to Stokastic right here on YouTube. Well, why are you not? We got great coverage for each and every day. Get you ready tomorrow. We'll have you covered for your MLB analysis of tomorrow's MLB slate. So keep it locked here. Do you think a pivot from a placing standpoint instead of salary is a good idea? Say Amarola greater than Harvick.
I wouldn't personally. I mean, they are kind of similar plays, but Harvick has shown more consistency of being able to get higher finishes this year. So I wouldn't drop down from Harvick to Amarola.
Jake asked, do you think Ty Gibbs can actually win the race?
No, I don't think he can win, but I do think he's got top 8 potential today.
Thoughts on Corey LaJoy?
Bad, slow, sometimes can't really finish races too well.
Damn, get on the fence. Tell me how you really feel.
Well, at the same time, can you play him today? Sure, but all these cheap plays are so bad today. There's just no good ones.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thought process for me is if I'm getting down to whether it's a LaJoy, a Gillen, a Justin Haley, Ty Dilly, any of these guys down here, what's that allow me to get to the rest of my lineup?
Yeah, I actually have a lineup in one of my 3 maxes. It's got Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, and Ross Chastain in it. And once I grab Gillen, the worst driver after that's Ty Gibbs, and you can still get Bubba Wallace in there. So Gillen really does open it up if you want to go really high end today.
Yeah, I mean, like you think about it, if you just want to start a lineup and just say, let's say you just click Ty Gillen, you're going to see like, oh man, I can get to a lot.
You can do anything you want.
Like, especially like if you're talking about, constructing a lineup, if you go say, all right, I'll put Ty Gillen 5,200. Then you go, you say, you know what? I like what I see out of Ty Gibbs, 6,600. Then you go, you know what? Let me get the guy on the pole, 7,400 Bubba Wallace. Now I can really get to a lot.
You can seriously do whatever you can easily fit in 3 studs today. It's not hard at all. And not really even the lineup still look pretty good too.
No question about it. Jake says, is Tyler Reddick the best Chevy in the field today?
I would say it's close between him or Chase. I'd give the edge to Chase Elliott just because of who he is, but I'd say Reddick's right there with him.
Last man in under 7,100.
Ty Gibbs is the guy I've gotten to the most, but I also think Keselowski and Amarola are in play, but Ty Gibbs is my favorite.
Yeah, okay. It's hard to avoid the Toyotas today. Like they're just killing it.
And especially when you have Wallace and Gibbs at their price points, it's just so easy to plug them in.
Yeah. D Money who asked that question says, I already have Gibbs. So if that takes taking Gibbs out of that equation.
It probably, if it's a tournament, Amarola. If it's a cash game, I'd go with Keselowski.
Screw it. Give me Michael McDowell.
At the end of the day, we're not going to like him, and then he's going to work.
He's going to go out there and get you like 30, 35 points, like
every single week.
He's just consistent.
He really is.
I mean, we have him projected, not in the 30-point range, but he seems to always just put up the numbers, and that's what we're looking for, as I look in that other range there, like I don't really love Cole Custer today.
No.
Austin Hill's not really big on that one.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Brad, from a GPP aspect, I get it.
Yeah, I do. It's just really tough to get there because of who he is, but I don't mind playing him a little bit today.
Yeah, I feel like Daniel Suarez is a guy we really haven't got too many questions on.
I like him a lot. I'm surprised we have. He's one of my highest owned drivers over on FanDuel. I have a good chunk of him over on DK, but I don't think people are going to go to him as much as they should. And I mean, it's a Trackhouse car, and it's not that expensive on either site, so I'm definitely a fan.
Is Bowman a must play in a GPP?
GPP, absolutely not a must play. In cash games, yeah, he's a pretty good play, but in GPPs, you do not have to play Bowman.
Suarez instead of Bowman in a GPP?
Oh, yeah, that's what I have more Suarez today than I think I do Bowman over on FanDuel.
Yeah. course, appreciate everyone tuning in for NASCAR Live Before Lock. Well, hopefully we'll see some racing today.
Yeah.
We'll see when that might happen. Of course, lock now 3:15 p.m. each time over there on the DraftKings side of the equation. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, we'll be back here next week for the Stokastic Live Before Lock show. Hopefully everyone has a great day. Hopefully you take down a tournament and have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you next week.